Hey folks, Andrew Packer here. Welcome to Trading Tips. I want to talk to you today about how to trade news events. It's a pretty interesting and broad subject, and when I talk about the news, I'm not just talking about things like a company's quarterly earnings numbers, which tends to be a big headline thing, especially if a company beats earnings and shares go way up, or if they miss earnings and shares go down. We're also not talking about guidance, which is the forward-looking statements that usually comes with earnings as well. We're talking about some more mundane news, stuff that doesn't always necessarily kind of hit the main headlines on a more traditional and broad-based news site. We're talking about data and information that even doesn't always get to a financial website right away, and that actually gives us a lot of opportunities as traders to make some short-term profits. So when it comes to news-based investing, there are two major areas where I see opportunities for investors to make a profit by buying when these news developments occur. And the first one is when there is an announcement of layoffs. Now, obviously, if a bunch of companies are laying off workers all at the same time, that's probably a sign of a recession. The market's probably already peaked. That's not good. But if you have a very large company that's saying, hey, we're streamlining our operations, we're going to get rid of 150 people on our back office, or we're laying off, a few hundred or few thousand frontline workers, chances are that's actually a pretty good sign. It's a sign that the company recognizes, hey, we overhired in the past. The amount of work that we have total for our total workforce, we can split that up a little more evenly. And that's generally going to be a good sign for the stock a few months down the line because they can start seeing cost savings, and they usually don't see a major decline as a result of making those layoffs. And of course, anyone who's worked in corporate America knows maybe you've seen a department at your own company, or you've been in this situation where a few people leave in the department, the total amount of work stays the same, it gets divided a little differently among the people who are left, and then, hey, guess what? The fundamentals for the company, it hasn't changed except for the fact that they have fewer people that they have to make payroll for and pay for those expenses, plus healthcare, retirement plans, and all of that sort of thing. So a layoff announcement can actually be a pretty good place to look for a short-term investment trading opportunity. We're talking anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, or maybe even a few months, particularly if the layoffs happen quickly and it can show up in the next quarterly numbers from a company. Thinking specifically about layoffs, if you look at layoffs in the financial world, in investment banking, in places like hedge funds and that sort of thing, finding out where departments are getting laid off can actually give you a great idea of what asset is probably kind of the most hated, what's the most oversold, and where you're actually likely to get some really good bargains. So right now, as I'm making this video, there have been a large number of layoffs in the financial sector for a lot of commodity investors. Now, commodities have been heavily out of favor for the past few years. It makes sense that, because the sector's been out of favor, it's not really attracting money, it's not attracting investor interest. So large banks and other financial institutions don't need to have as large of a team to cover these areas. I think that actually makes it look like a very interesting space to buy into now and to look into details, particularly in places like iron ore and copper, where the current supplies are being met by old mines near the end of their life expectancy, and where new resources really don't look like they're going to be readily available at current prices. I think we're setting up for some shortages there. We can see some similar trends with gold production, and even oil production in the US, which has surged in recent years, is based off this fracking technology, which can be a little bit short-lived. And if you're expecting a 20-year well life from a traditional way, the fracking technology gives you an extra few years in there, and we're already into that place. So just looking at layoffs in the financial sector, I see some opportunities there. Now, the second area where I think you can find good news to buy now and profit later is when there's new products. Sometimes this will be announced during a company's quarterly report, but for like a technology company, there's going to be a company blog, or there's going to be some kind of conference, and there's plenty of them throughout the year, where new products are announced. One great example of this is Facebook recently posted a blog where they announced some new additions that they're making and some new capabilities that they're adding to their service, which actually makes them a lot more like Snapchat in a lot of ways, and it's sort of popularizing that model. So Snapchat has a much younger user base, it's more video oriented. Facebook's pushing in that direction because that's part of the market where they're capable of heavily competing with Snap. So when we look at a company announcing new products, that sort of thing on a blog post, that's not necessarily going to make the financial news. When you look at what's happening at conferences when new products are developed, there might be some attention, especially when Apple was bringing out new products back in the day. That's kind of fallen off the wayside, and investors just aren't paying as much attention to that right now. So there's a really good opportunity there. So these are just two places where, when you see these things, it might look a little mundane, just some boring little headline to, just kind of tell you what's going on. But the secret is new product developments at companies, particularly tech companies, and announcements of layoffs at very large companies or in certain subsectors of the finance sector can give you an idea of where to get some good trading ideas and where to find good investment opportunities going forward. So that'll wrap things up for this edition of Trading Tips. Until next time, I'm Andrew Packer wishing you good trading and good financial health.